Let's get started with our first news. Robert Whittaker reacted to the fight between Nassourdine Imavov and Borralho, sharing his detailed thoughts on how it played out. He started by saying that Imavov really put on a clinic, not in the sense of it being completely one-sided, but in the sense of technical brilliance. The fight displayed a high level of striking that was clean, sharp, and highly effective. Whittaker made it clear that he loved watching it, and the technical aspects stood out to him more than anything. What impressed him most was Imavov's counter ability. The speed, the timing, and the precision of his shots were something to behold. He was lightning quick, and the way he switched levels was exceptional. He dug to the body with accuracy and then immediately went high with crisp shots. That constant variation gave Borralho a lot of problems from multiple angles early in the fight. The rhythm and pace set by Imavov clearly forced Borralho onto the back foot, struggling to find consistent answers. Whittaker pointed out that during the first couple of rounds, Imavov's pressure was constant and his control of the striking exchanges was evident. However, he also noted that in round 3, Imavov seemed to rest on his laurels a little. He wasn't as aggressive, and instead of maintaining that high pace, he started waiting too long to pull the trigger. That hesitation gave Borralho the opportunity to find space, and that's when Borralho becomes dangerous. When Borralho has room, his creativity shines through. Whittaker highlighted that Borralho's style thrives on unpredictability, throwing unorthodox strikes and coming in from angles you don't always expect. This is what makes him a tricky opponent, and in that third round, Imavov allowed him to showcase flashes of that unorthodox offense. It wasn't enough to take control of the fight, but it was clear that giving Borralho space opens the door for his dangerous creativity. Despite that dip in momentum, Whittaker felt that Imavov quickly adjusted. By round 4, Imavov turned the tide back in his favor. He ramped up the pressure again, took back the center of the octagon, and resumed dictating the pace. Whittaker admired how Imavov stalked Borralho, cutting off his movement and leaving him with limited options. That consistent forward pressure combined with clean technical striking showed maturity in Imavov's approach. Whittaker emphasized that Imavov's performance was not just about speed or power but about strategy. The ability to mix up targets, maintain composure, and control the fight tempo made the performance special. Whittaker, being a former champion himself, appreciated the fine details of the fight and the way Imavov managed to stay disciplined while still showcasing creativity and aggression. He wrapped up his reaction by saying that overall, Imavov delivered a very strong performance, particularly with his striking display. While there were moments where he gave Borralho opportunities to get creative, the way he regained control and put the pressure back on was impressive. Whittaker's breakdown showed both respect for Imavov's skills and an understanding of the subtle adjustments that separate good fighters from great ones. Before moving to the next news, we have one quick request for you. We're constantly working on improving our content to earn your love and support. That's why we'd truly appreciate it if you could take just a moment to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Move on to another news. Daniel Cormier recently shared his thoughts on what JDM must do in order to have any chance of success against Islam when they meet at UFC 32 on November 15th. Cormier didn't hold back in breaking down the challenges JDM will face. He explained that this fight will ultimately come down to how JDM handles the wrestling of Islam. Of course, he'll also have to deal with Islam's striking, but the real test lies in surviving the grappling exchanges. Cormier emphasized that JDM has to look at the blueprint from the Ba Muhammad fight. If he can defend takedowns and keep the fight standing over the course of several rounds, that's where his chances are elevated. But if he allows Islam to get on top, then it becomes a completely different story. Cormier stressed that there's simply no one like Islam when he's in top control. That's why he's been finishing nearly everyone he's fought. His dominance from top position is unmatched, and it's been the key to his success time and time again. Cormier pointed out that Islam isn't just winning fights, he's finishing them. He mentioned that Islam has finished 7 of his last 8 opponents. The only man who survived without being finished was Volkanovski, and that was in their first fight where Islam went on to win by unanimous decision. This shows just how dangerous Islam is. He doesn't just grind out decisions, he actively finds ways to end fights. That's the level of threat that JDM is walking into when he steps into the cage. For JDM to have a real chance, Cormier believes he must stop Islam's #1 weapon, the wrestling. If he can stuff takedowns, keep the fight on the feet and make Islam work in striking exchanges, then JDM's chances of success rise dramatically. Cormier noted that after watching the Ba Muhammad fight, it seems like JDM has made improvements in this area. He looks more prepared now than he might have been in the past, and that gives him at least a shot against a fighter as dominant as Islam. Cormier also added that this fight is one of the best matchups the UFC could possibly make right now. It's the type of fight that fans have been waiting for, and it's exciting that the promotion is finally putting it together. The stylistic clash between a powerful striker like JDM and an elite grappler like Islam creates a dynamic that fans love to see. Cormier expressed his excitement at seeing how it all plays out inside the octagon. He wrapped up by recalling a funny moment from just a few weeks ago. Cormier was on a show and someone said, "Mute DC's mic." JDM actually retweeted that clip, which made Cormier laugh. It was a light-hearted moment in the build-up to what is going to be an incredibly serious and intense fight. In the end, Daniel Cormier's breakdown made it clear for JDM to succeed, he must stop the wrestling of Islam, force the fight to stay standing, and make it a battle of striking rather than grappling. Otherwise, he risks being added to the long list of opponents who were finished by the lightweight legend moving up to welterweight. Move on to another news. Tom Aspinall was recently asked a light-hearted but revealing question during an interview. The interviewer wanted to know what topics should be avoided if they were to play a game of Tom Aspinall interview bingo. Without hesitation, Aspinall immediately gave his answer. He said Jon Jones. That was the very first thing he brought up, shutting it down right away. He made it clear that if there's one subject he doesn't want to hear about anymore, it's questions related to Jon Jones. Aspinall didn't just stop there. He doubled down, repeating that any Jon Jones question is simply not going to get answered. He was firm about it, almost as if he's been bombarded with the same thing over and over again to the point where it has become exhausting. According to Aspinall, this is the #1 square on the so-called interview bingo card because interviewers just can't seem to let go of it. He even gave an example of how these questions usually come up. People will ask things like, "Do you think you can beat him faster than Jon Jones?" That's the type of question he hears far too often. Aspinall mentioned that it's been one of the most common ones he's received, especially on that particular day. It has clearly become a heavy favorite among interviewers and fans who want to bring Jon Jones into the conversation no matter what. But Aspinall wasn't bitter about it. He handled it with his usual calm and witty demeanor. While he shut down the Jon Jones talk, he also played along with the game, pointing out that fans themselves sometimes throw in random questions too. That unpredictability adds to the whole bingo concept. It could go in any direction, and Aspinall seemed amused by that. One of the funnier examples he mentioned was fans asking about new neck tattoos. He laughed it off, saying he doesn't think so, but added a cheeky "who knows" at the end. It showed that he doesn't take himself too seriously and can have fun with the offbeat questions. Even though he clearly doesn't want to deal with constant Jon Jones talk, he's open to playful and unexpected things that fans come up with. Aspinall wrapped it up by moving on quickly. He said, "It's gonna be good. We're going in on to the next one." That attitude reflects his mindset overall. He doesn't dwell on repetitive questions, especially about Jon Jones. Instead, he's more focused on looking ahead to what's next for him in his career. The way Aspinall responded highlighted something important. He's tired of being defined by a potential matchup with Jon Jones, especially when there's no guarantee that fight will even happen. He wants to build his own path, answer questions that are fresh, and keep the focus on himself rather than constantly being linked to someone else's name. His clarity on this subject shows his confidence, his individuality, and his determination to move forward. Move on to another news. Paddy Pimblett has been putting in serious work as he prepares for a potential showdown with Ilia, sharpening his striking and making sure every area of his game is ready. He recently shared that he put 5 rounds in the bag, focusing specifically on striking, and while he didn't feel quite at his best that day, he's determined to push through. Paddy admitted that last week his striking felt sharp, and during a sparring session with Luke he was flowing well. This time though, he felt a bit off, almost like he just woke up on the wrong side of the bed. Even so, he recognized that these ups and downs are part of the grind, and he knows he has to get his timing right if he's going to be ready for a fighter as dangerous as Ilia. Paddy explained that timing is everything when preparing for an elite opponent. He understands that the margins are small at the top of the division, and any lapse in sharpness could cost him. That's why he's determined to keep refining his striking, tightening up his reactions, and improving the precision of his offense. He wants to be able to compete on the feet and not rely solely on his grappling, even though grappling has always been his strongest weapon. And when it comes to grappling, Paddy has full confidence. He described how phenomenal he feels every time he gets to work on the mat. In his words, once he gets an opponent to the floor, they don't get back up. He prides himself on smothering people, using his top pressure to break their will and control the pace of the fight. Paddy compared his dominance on the ground to what fans saw from du Plessis over the weekend, emphasizing how overwhelming it can be when he gets on top and refuses to let his opponent breathe. He laid out his process clearly. When he drags an opponent to the canvas, he makes them carry his weight. He doesn't just hold them there, he makes them feel every second of it. He applies relentless pressure, controls their movements, and lands shots at the same time. Paddy said that this is what separates him from others. It's not just about taking someone down, it's about breaking them mentally and physically once they're underneath him. His belief is simple: once he's on top, you are not getting up. Even though he knows his grappling is his bread and butter, Paddy recognizes that preparing for Ilia means leaving no stone unturned. Ilia has dangerous striking, sharp timing, and a style that demands full preparation. That's why Paddy has been putting in the extra work, pushing himself in rounds even when he doesn't feel his best, because those tough days are what build the sharpness needed for the biggest fights. With his grappling as strong as ever and his striking a constant focus of improvement, Paddy Pimblett is preparing himself for the challenge ahead. He's aware of the danger, but he's also confident that if he gets the fight where he wants it, on the ground, he can control, smother, and dominate anyone who stands across from him. Move on to another news. Strickland didn't hold back when talking about Borralho and the choices he made leading up to his recent fight. Strickland called him an idiot for cutting weight and being the backup fighter for Khamzat versus du Plessis, just a couple of weeks before his own scheduled bout. According to Strickland, that decision made no sense at all, and he was baffled that Borralho would put himself in such a position. Strickland explained what happened, saying that Borralho was around him during camp, and he looked completely drained. He recalled asking him, "What's wrong with you, Caio?" To which Borralho responded, "I'm cutting. I'm an alternate." That's when Strickland really lost patience with the whole situation. He pointed out how ridiculous it was to give up 4 weeks of camp, cut weight twice, and still expect to be ready for a fight that was already on the schedule. In his view, whoever told Borralho this was a good idea deserves to be hit. A fan highlighted the irony of Strickland starting off his post by calling Borralho an idiot, and Strickland doubled down in his reaction. He admitted that it was incredibly frustrating for him to watch. He even said he wanted to hit him out of pure annoyance, but he chose not to say anything at the time because he didn't want to drag Borralho's spirits down before the fight. Still, Strickland was clear he believes Borralho followed some bad advice and it completely derailed his preparation. According to Strickland, the version of Borralho that fans saw in the cage wasn't the real one. He argued that the lackluster performance had nothing to do with talent or potential, but everything to do with the choices made in the lead-up. Losing 4 critical weeks of training while your body is going through repeated cuts leaves you depleted, both physically and mentally. Strickland believes that played a huge role in what went wrong. This isn't the first time Strickland has been brutally honest about fighters making questionable decisions. His style has always been raw and unfiltered, and this situation was no different. Even though he referred to Borralho as his buddy, he still didn't hesitate to point out the flaws in his preparation. To Strickland, friendship doesn't mean sugarcoating the truth, and the truth here is that Borralho put himself in a terrible situation that could have been avoided. Strickland made it clear that while he didn't want to crush Borralho's confidence leading up to the fight, looking back, the frustration still lingers. In his eyes, this wasn't just about one fight, it was about discipline, preparation, and making smart decisions in a sport where every detail counts. He strongly believes that had Borralho avoided the double weight cut and focused entirely on his camp, the outcome might have looked very different. In the end, Strickland's message was blunt. Don't sabotage yourself by taking unnecessary risks. In a game as brutal as MMA, every choice matters, and in his opinion, Borralho made the wrong ones. Move on to another news. Ilia recently stirred up headlines after running into Terence Crawford. The two crossed paths yesterday, and Ilia quickly shared the moment online. He posted a photo of the two of them together on X with a simple but loaded caption, Who wins in a fight? That one line immediately set off reactions from fans across combat sports, with many debating how the UFC champion would fare against one of boxing's pound-for-pound kings. But Ilia wasn't done there. Earlier today, he followed up with a much bolder statement. He said he wouldn't even talk about what would happen if the two ever fought inside the octagon, because to him that wouldn't even be worth discussing. Instead, he shifted the focus directly to boxing, stepping right into Crawford's world. Ilia declared that if they fought inside the ring, he would put Crawford to sleep on the very first contact. That's a massive claim considering Crawford's reputation as one of the best and most skilled boxers alive today. Known for his elite technical striking, footwork, and finishing ability, Crawford has dismantled nearly everyone he's faced in the boxing ring. For Ilia to confidently say he would knock him out in their sport shows just how much belief he has in his own power and precision. Ilia has built his UFC career on fearlessness, power, and relentless confidence. He has never shied away from calling out big names or making bold statements, and this was no exception. By saying he would put Crawford to sleep in a boxing match, Ilia not only challenged one of the greatest boxers in the world, but also reminded everyone why he's one of the most talked about fighters in MMA today.